Hi. So it's November 11th, and I just wanted to do a quick introduction about what you're about to see. It's the updated review of my birth chart with Christina and from Skies of Grace. And so I'll include her link at the bottom because she's just incredible and amazing, and I was so appreciative of her, just being able to check in with me again and provide me with an updated review. So that's what you guys are going to see. And just an update in terms of where the energy is for me, what I'm going to start focusing on, and if I continue to record, because I'm still trying to figure out if I'm going to continue to record or if I need to stop at some point. Then I'll just so that you guys can see where I'm at with that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope it's helpful just to kind of get a view or an overview of what it might look like if you're interested in a birth chart reading, and and what's to come. So enjoy. Round two.
Okay, let's hope this gets fixed.
Okay.
If not, I'll have to do a much deeper looking into this.
Okay. Yay!
Oh, yeah. I was like, I don't have any tech skills at all. All I could do is just pray for it to get fixed. that seemed to work, so okay.
That looks so cool.
Okay, so this is your chart, which you are already familiar with.
Okay, and you're gonna record. You're gonna do the little recording thing, right?
Let me do the recording.
Okay.
I just got so excited.
I know.
In progress.
And then you're gonna have to teach me how you record. You're like, it's just a button.
Well, normally I record it for my clients anyway. I just thought maybe because I knew you had a YouTube video situation that maybe you would have like
I ain't fancy like that yet. I'm still learning.
Okay, so I'm gonna sort of focus on the moment and like this particular moment in the next like week or so, and then sort of like the rest of the year up until your birthday is sort of what I've
good
focused on.
Yeah.
First of all, let me just ask you a question, because this can kind of taint the way I'm reading this. Are you thinking about having a baby?
No.
Is that in your... Okay. All right.
I'm like, uh-oh. But it could be symbolic, like birthing something new.
No, absolutely. Like, it's one of those things where the energy of this place in your chart can be either like very literal, like this person is having a child, or like much broader and more based on like creativity and pleasure and other ways of engaging with the world. So sometimes it's easier to just ask, like, are you gonna have a baby?
Yeah, no. I'm following your advice from the last one where you're just like, you're not gonna be ready for a relationship until you're closer to 41. So lately I've been all
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure, because I was like reading all into this, like different things, and then I was like, wait a second. Okay, so I'm going to pull up your chart right now.
Okay.
So at this moment, sort of the biggest thing that's happening in the sky is that Mars has just sort of re-emerged from a long period of invisibility. So we just got a new Mars cycle starting last month. And what that is sort of doing is it's bringing a lot of the focus in the sky at this moment to Mars. So we just moved out of this Mars-Saturn square, which was sort of the dominant energy for the last couple of days, which is this sort of like difficult, slow, everything is like hard to move forward energy. And Mars has just moved past that. And he is over here in a really powerful place in the zodiac in your second house, which is money and resources and confidence. So there's this sort of reemergence happening, and it's hitting that part of your chart, and that's sort of like important. Mercury is there with Mars, the sun is there with Mars, and he is basically about to oppose Uranus in your 8th house, which is another sort of house of resources. So this is pulling a lot of energy into considerations of resources and confidence right now. Does that make sense for you at all, or is that tracking with what's going on?
Resources are definitely my focus right now. And I guess, yeah, you can say like confidence goes hand in hand with the work that I'm doing, and yeah.
So this is also especially sort of highlighted for me in your chart because this Mars right here, as he approaches Uranus, it's going to have that contact that he's going to make with Uranus is going to happen 2 days before a full moon eclipse. And this full moon eclipse is basically happening in a really sensitive part in your chart. So Rahu up here, he's going to be lined up with your sun. And the actual eclipse is going to happen basically right in line with your natal Uranus. So what that tells me is that you are, this moment, like this next 2 weeks, is sort of the beginning of a new sort of cycle or era with respect to your approach to finances, and with respect to your approach to the way you collaborate with other people, and the way that you are entangled with other people. So this Mars-Uranus opposition is like the kickoff to that. And that sort of brings in a new eclipse cycle. So the eclipses are going to start happening in your 8th house and your 2nd house for a year and a half. So that is like a year and a half of reviewing money. Like, how are we going to deal with money? How are we thinking about money? How is all of this, how do you approach this has to sort of like get a total review over the next year and a half. But Uranus is power, and Uranus sort of just like sends this like raw energy into your life, and it's sort of disruptive energy, but also a sort of basically what Uranus does is an exchange of power for you being willing to change. So Uranus asks you to sort of be open to shifting the way that you do things so that you can receive like the energy or power that it's throwing your way. And you're going to have a lot of Uranus in your life in the next couple of years. Because as you can see, she's over here right now in your 8th house, which is, we're going to have to get in deep into the 8th house because this is going to be an important place for you. But most fundamentally, the 8th house is shared resources. So that means money that you share with other people. It means shared psychological landscapes. It means shared projects. It means your sort of ability to move around other people's spaces. So for someone like you who I don't know you that well, but from what I remember, you're interested in sort of like psychological and spiritual arts. So
Yeah.
that has to do with people's internal spaces, so navigating
Okay.
those spaces. So you can see Uranus is hanging out in here. Uranus moves really, really slowly. So she's going to be there for another like 3.5 years. But your natal Mars is here too.
Okay.
So the closer Uranus gets to Mars, the more sort of like energy is going to start like really being generated in that space. In addition to the fact that you have Rahu up here, Rahu is basically the more button of the zodiac. Like wherever Rahu goes, he's just wants more and more and more and more, and increases energy. So you're going to have this disruptive power of Uranus moving into a relationship with the more button of Rahu, all sort of on top of your natal Mars.
Okay.
So you have to sort of learn to negotiate between those three entities for the next really 3 years, but year and a half, like specifically.
Okay.
So what does that actually mean?
Yeah. I'm trying to be like positive. I'm like, she's saying disruptive, but really it's just gonna be challenging.
So the best way to deal with Uranus's disruption is to be willing to release like what you think you need, or what you already sort of the situation that's already occurring.
Okay.
So Uranus, if you're not ready or willing to change or let go, Uranus can cause a lot of problems.
Okay.
Especially when she's like interacting with Mars. Mars loves Uranus, like loves her. Thinks she's like the biggest badass in the world. So Mars is very happy to be receiving Uranus's power. But for you, it can be a little disruptive. Okay. So
unless I'm comfortable with that, and unless I'm comfortable with releasing, letting go, like working with the energy, right?
Yeah. Okay. It's a hard thing to be comfortable with, but you can sort of what you want to do is be willing to like let it transfigure itself through you into power. Okay. So what kind of power comes from the 8th house is sort of what we have to talk about, because a lot of planetary focus is getting pulled into there for the next year or so. Okay. And the kind of power that comes from the 8th house is financial and psychological. Okay. And sort of, to some degrees, depending upon the line of work or interests you have, spiritual. So it's a really fuzzy place in the zodiac. Okay. It's a place that really belongs to your connection to others. Okay. So what kind of losses can occur in that house? Death can definitely occur. Death of people that you know. Mm-hmm. That's not an absolute certainty, but it is a possibility. Yeah. Death of something you thought that you were. Death of ideology. Death of sort of a specific way of relating to the world. Okay. But with the 8th house, also have rebirth. So part of the reason why there is a spiritual connotation to the 8th house, for people who want to work with the dead, they a lot of times get a lot of 8th house stuff in there. You know, I see a lot of death doulas, I see a lot of mediums, I see a lot of people who work in that arena with a lot of big 8th house placements. Psychological death and rebirth, a lot of therapists, a lot of people who are forced to get into other people's psychological spaces, especially when you have Mars or Saturn there. Okay. So it's sort of like having the gift to help other people navigate their troubles. Okay. Another kind of power that comes from the eighth house is money. So getting access to other people's money, access to other people's resources. So that can be family resources. It can be intimate partner resources. It could be grants. It could be any sort of funds that aren't necessarily yours, but that you can use for co-creating, for collaborating, for projects.
Okay.
So it's also a good space to do projects in.
Okay.
With other people. So a lot of these eighth house themes are almost certain to be present for you in the next definitely year and a half.
Okay.
Does this make sense? Do you have any questions about this?
No, it's making sense. Yeah.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Cool. And the reason it feels like the most immediate thing to bring up is that the eclipse next week is very intense.
Okay.
Like, probably next week. Like, I've had basically like a circle around next week for the entire year.
Oh,
like,
wow.
not just for you, but for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, like next week is probably one of the most intense weeks of 2021. And it kind of is pulling us back to that globally, it's pulling us back to that January energy. Okay. There was like the insurrection and like all this crazy stuff, that's sort of like what we're getting back to at the end of November. And it's sort of like the last hurrah of the trouble that has been the last 2 years.
Okay.
And then you get into January and the whole game board starts to shift around in ways that are going to take us into a different space.
Okay.
So if difficult things come up in the next couple of weeks, it's probably best to think of them as something, it's very eighth house, something ending and something new beginning or coming in.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, cool. So the next sort of really important spot in your chart for the next year or so until your birthday, there's two actually. There's Virgo over here. There's not going to be any major transits through Virgo. It's actually sort of a quiet place right now, which is nice, but it's a highlighted place in your chart. So it's your spirituality and internal life. So you're being sort of asked to focus on that a little bit and to work on that for the next year. But what's sort of sweet about that is that you're not getting a whole lot of noise in that space. You're getting some support. So in January, Jupiter is going to move into Pisces, and he's just going to like blast this corner of your life with like Jupiter light. And Jupiter is abundance and coherence. So you're getting a sort of like a request of looking into that part of your life, but you're getting freedom and support to sort of like make of it what you want or need.
Okay.
The next like pretty big highlight over the next about 3 or 4 months is this space down here.
Okay.
So this is Capricorn, which is your fourth house of home and parents. So it's where you live. It's the people who raised you.
Okay.
So where you live right now, where you lived when you were a kid, and your folks, like your home. And then is this fifth house. So the fifth house is pleasure and creativity and children. So this is why I was asking about children. But it's not necessarily birthing children or having children, but it can also be teaching children or interacting with children.
Okay.
But it can also be just any sort of creative power. So definitely you're being asked right now to work on your creative capacity and your creative power. And that doesn't necessarily mean like making art or being an artist or something like that, but it means that generative power and volition that you have inside of you. So it's actually a really wonderful place because it's the most volitional house in the whole wheel. So it means it's the house where you get to do the most of what you want to do.
Okay, cool.
And there's two important details about your fifth house specifically. One, you have K2 here. K2 is the ascetic of the zodiac. He's the one who teaches us how to do spiritual practice. So K2 is deep meditation. K2 is access to internal realms. K2 is generational or genetic or past life karma. So that space is opening up to you, and it's especially open until your birthday. And you have Saturn here. So Saturn, he focuses you and asks you to apply a lot of work and energy to this part of your life. So it can feel like constriction, but it can also just focus you and get you to apply a lot of work. And then you kind of like work in that space for a long time. And then as Saturn moves, it opens up. So you can sort of think of yourself as like laying the groundwork right now in this part of your life for like your forever future.
Yeah.
So if it feels slow or sticky right now, it's sort of just because it's wanting you to really dig in there.
Got it.
But the thing that's really interesting to me is that you have creativity and spirituality getting mixed up in this space. So they're connected to each other. So that feels really important, especially since you have also your 12th house active and you have all this stuff going on in your 8th house.
Okay.
So that does feel like a part. I mean, and it makes sense. Like you're asking me, I want to learn how to read charts. I want to,
Yeah.
So I get that. And then from a more sort of just practical, just like what's coming up for you in the next couple of months, I basically just see a lot of, hullabaloo in December, January, February in the 4th house.
A lot of what?
I see a lot of just energy and a lot of things reshuffling in the 4th house.
Okay.
In December, January, and February.
Okay.
So what that sort of tells me is that there could be drama that comes up with your parents. Okay. There could be a move that's happening or a necessity to move. Because Venus is going to retrograde in your 4th house, and you have Venus natally up here in your 9th house. To me, that looks like an ideological or religious problem that your parents have with you.
Oh, yeah.
Flaring up.
Okay.
Around like Christmas and January.
Okay. Yeah.
And becoming a point of great conflict.
Yeah.
So it seems like you're kind of already aware of that.
Yeah.
But it could be multiple things. It could be the issue with parents, and it could also be a move of some sort or a shift in the living environment.
Okay.
I think that, let me see when it was. So early February, like first 2 weeks of February, it looks like your moon is going to get hit pretty hard. There's a Mars and Venus conjunction on your moon, pretty close to Pluto, and Venus will have just retrograded there, and Mercury will just have retrograded through. So I think that could be a little bit of like heartbreak with respect to the way your family dynamics are, and it could also be bringing up some past like love interest stuff that might happen. Not necessarily that it's a horrible bad thing,
Right.
but that it feels like a big feeling time. So maybe just sort of giving yourself some space as much as you can in February would be good.
Okay.
Really through January and February. But then sort of after, toward the end of February, it looks like, first of all, Jupiter is going to be in Pisces. So it brings a lot of energy to your daily life, like energy and positivity and sort of ability to navigate through what you have to do every day. And then you're going to get the planets stacking up in Aquarius. And that is sort of that creative space. So it could be like just that you have a lot more space somehow once you move through that conflict to start to develop whatever it is that you're trying to develop for yourself.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've kind of anticipated the whole like just the challenges really with family. I mean, as I've been going through this process of like YouTube, I mean, I'm literally like just hanging my dirty laundry out for people to see. That's literally what I've been doing. And there's still information that not everybody is aware of that I'm slowly kind of letting out. And and it's a shock. It's a heartbreak. It's definitely like I anticipate more challenges in that area as I continue to move, as I continue to post, because there's a delay in my posting, like a couple months, more for me in terms of processing what I'm going through and then sitting with it emotionally, and so it totally.
Yeah. So is that your one of your primary creative outlets right now is the YouTube?
It is, and more of this, I want to, because I jumped back into, so after you and I met last year, I kept working for another month and then I let it go. I was just like, I couldn't keep working. Like my body literally, I just couldn't keep working, and I didn't have a plan. I had a savings, and I really just focused on my self-care a few months after that, January through March, February, end of February, March. And I picked up like a side job, like literally like a weekend thing. And then finance, I got hit in terms of just like challenging with my finances, but I knew a lot of it had to do where my Chiron was then, and just kind of having to work with just loss and like, okay, I think one of the things you said was just like following your gut. Last time was following what you wanted, even though it wasn't the most stable choice. And so so resources was like, has been a kind of a theme this year in terms of being comfortable with the discomfort, being comfortable with the instability, and just kind of already knowing like, I'm going to be fine. Things are going to align. And so creatively right now, now that I'm in a better spot, I came back to counseling in a different way, working with adults. But the weird thing is, even with the people that I meet, I see like their inner child. Like I see the wounds, right? And so anyway, so when you showed me this birth chart, and that was the first time I was exposed to it, I remember throughout this whole year thinking, why is this not part of treatment? Why is this not part of treatment in terms of helping people heal, helping people have a different perspective? And so that's one of the reasons. I think that's where a lot of the creativity is, just like, how can I collaborate with other people? That's why I kind of posed that question to you, because in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, I can only do so much with the knowledge that I have about birth charts, and who would I feel comfortable referring people to, right? And so then you came to mind, of course, because I love how you do things. And so I knowing though with therapy, we have this umbrella of law and ethics that I have to also abide by, and wanting to do more like life coaching at the same time, where there's more flexibility with how I present information, and using this to kind of incorporate that, or working with other people where it's like a team, you know, like, hey, let's get your birth chart reading done by someone who's like really good at it, like you, for example. And then and then have them come back to me in terms of me helping them heal, you know, what they need to heal. And so just that's the creative.
Well, that's interesting, because that is very like on point with sort of this Mars, Uranus, Rahu thing happening in the 8th house. Because the 8th house is, I always like so often see therapists like with malefics in the 8th house.
Okay.
And I mean, it sounds like you're sort of on point already.
Yes. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to jump off, or like to sort of transition into talking about
what we had.
Yeah, okay. But also I gave you the highlights of what I saw in your chart for like the next, 8 months or so. But do you have any other specific questions that you want me to look at?
No, that was really just the focus of just wanting to understand more, like where do I need to put my focus on right now. So you provided.
You have a pretty heavy focus on this. So you have this Mercury Saturn thing happening right now, and Saturn just sort of planted in your 5th house, and so it's really focusing a lot of your energy into that creative work. Then when you turn, you're 40 now?
Yeah, I'm 40.
So when you turn 41, you're gonna start getting busier and busier, and you'll start having this more of like you won't have as much time to do the creative envisioning stuff, and you're going to get pushed into just a lot of work. So I would really, try to nail things down and do the digging that you need to do in the creative space, because 41 will probably be a lot busier. And then it'll be busier, and then also those collaborations and love interests and stuff start coming back. So okay, well, I'm gonna pull down your chart then, and then we can just chat about whatever else you want to.
Sure. Hi, my name is Yubi, and in case you haven't figured it out, this footage is capturing my experience as I learn to navigate my personal spiritual awakening. I am learning that this experience is unique to each one of us, in whatever way we believe we are embracing living our truth. This just happens to be my journey. And despite me having a graduate degree and a license in clinical social work, this by no means is intended to replace any type of mental health advice. This is just me on a personal level, documenting my experience, shedding light on the truth that I am learning and discovering for myself, and really inviting you along for the ride. If by some magical chance you find this content to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, please click the like button, share the message, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have an Instagram account, a personal one, and one specifically for this channel that you're more than welcome to check out. I'm an open book. I have also created t-shirt designs. I'm wearing my favorite one right now, which is the North Node design, but I have that and other things that you can look at inspired by this process and journey, and I have the link in the description box as well as in the about section of my YouTube channel. So you're more than welcome to check those items out. Any type of support is great. Again, if you find this content really helpful or meaningful, sometimes when we take that step and be vulnerable, with showing what's inside our hearts and what's really our truth, we realize that we're much more connected than what we thought we were. And so I hope that as I'm living this experience, and that you find some type of truth for yourself, or find some type of ability to heal in some way just by relating, you know, just by knowing that you're not alone. That really has been my goal with this process, not just being able to connect with others, but really for my own healing. It's definitely been a therapeutic experience and a very creative one for myself. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best, and we'll see what else comes next for me.